I wonder if you heard about the incredible journey of the football that was blown 300 miles from Amsterdam, caught up in the wild winter winds of Storm Darcy, only to end up on the coast of Norfolk. An incredible journey. I've no idea where this diver's compass started its journey. But after a storm some years ago on a beach near us, I found it tangled up in masses of seaweed and absolutely caked in sand. It didn't look anything like it does now. It must have been such a loss for whoever was wearing it. It was quite a find for me. Many skilled underwater navigators use a magnetic compass just like this to navigate over longer distances and in poor visibility to help them keep on course and make sure that there's no mistake with the bearing that they're on. As his ministry is about to begin, Jesus finds himself heading in the direction of lonely combat with the tempter, who will seek to spiral into chaos, just like a magnet would be on the north needle of a compass, the bearing that Jesus is set to follow. That of his relationship with God, God the Father, and his desire to do his will. The tempter navigating his way through the needs and desires of the humanity of Jesus, fully God and fully human. From the spiritual high of his baptism, the Spirit of God descending on Jesus, and the voice of God the Father affirming who he is now in the Judean wilderness, awesome and foreboding. Yet Mark's account of the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness is startlingly brief. It is all of 2 verses long. Mark doesn't go into detail about how Satan tempts Jesus. It's enough to know that he who is called the Son of God comes face to face with his adversary. Jesus is tempted. He had to choose between the way of God and the way of the enemy of God. The gospel writer places this encounter right at the beginning of his account of the life of Jesus. It's integral to his ministry that's to come. These 40 days in which we journey with Jesus through this precious season of Lent, we seek through prayer, through study and reflection to check that there's no mistake on the bearing that we're on, that we're staying on our course, on our journey as disciples. Where, I wonder, do you think this Lenten journey you are embarking on is going to take you? Are you willing to step out of your comfort zone into unknown places, following unmarked paths? And what will you take with you on your way to help you on your journey? What will you look to as your compass, as your map, as your chart that will give you direction on this journey, this adventure of faith? Books? Maybe the diocesan These Are Our Stories, Lent in a Pandemic Year Lent course? Poems? Music? Maybe spiritual disciplines that you'd like to explore to help you get your Lenten bearings. I wonder, do we expect that the person we are at the start of our Lenten journey and the person we are at the end of it will be the same or different? A magnetic compass points towards the magnetic North Pole, which is not the same as true north, because magnetic north changes. It drifts several miles every year. Jesus was tempted by his adversary, but the course on which Jesus set out on didn't drift, nor did the destination that he is heading change. Jesus doesn't lose his bearings. Instead, through that wilderness encounter, He's gained in the strength of the relationship with the Father, who spoke his words of love over him as Jesus came up out of the Jordan. The solid alignment of trust in who God the Father is that Jesus will base his whole ministry on, and the love and the obedience within that is at the center of all that Jesus is. He is ready to begin his ministry. The depths of trust in and obedience to God the Father that will, in the final week of his earthly ministry, overcome the agony of the torment in Gethsemane. And he will need all the intimate knowledge that he is one with the Father and in his perfect will as he walks the agonizing way to Golgotha, where, in the words of the writer of our epistle reading, Christ suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring each one of us to God. When the diver who was separated from this compass for whatever reason wanted to find their way, they could well have lost their bearings when they lost this from their wrist. All of us can find ourselves off course at times, tempted to do those things that are contrary to the loving purposes of God in our lives and in the lives of others. When our resistance is at its lowest, it's the giving in and doing that which is contrary to the love and purpose that is so destructive. When we feel alone, when the world in which we inhabit, for whatever reason, feels like a barren wilderness, our gospel reading reminds us Jesus has been there. He understands. We are not alone. In an ever-changing world in which things can seem as if they are changing by the day, the ever-present presence of Jesus is the constant, calling us ever out with him on the adventure that he has set before us, ever moving forward to the destination that he's promised. Because Jesus didn't lose his bearings. Instead, he gained in the strength of his relationship with the Father, who sang his words of love over him as Jesus came up out of the Jordan. For many of us, this has been a long and difficult winter. The season of Lent is given to us as gift, a time for us to get our bearings, a time for us to reorientate ourselves, to take stock of the direction in which we're headed. As we journey with Jesus, will we cling to a carefully pre-planned route for our future direction of travel and worried and anxious cry, "Where are you taking me?" Or will we trust him enough for our orientation and our direction and enter into the adventure? One of the books that's going to accompany me on my Lenten journey is this one, The Word in the Wilderness, a poem a day for Lent and Easter by Malcolm Geet. And I'm going to read an extract from one of those poems, First Steps, Brancaster. This is the day to leave the dark behind you. Take the adventure. Step beyond the hearth. Shake off at last the shackles that confine you and find the courage for the forward path. You yearn for freedom through the long night watches. The day has come and you are free to choose. Now is your time and season. Companion still by your familiar crutches and leaning on the props you hope to lose, you step outside and widen your horizon. May God richly bless you as you step outside and as you journey with Jesus on your Lenten adventure. Amen.